She filed for divorce after my mother's funeral, but she had no idea what my mom had done. Hello and welcome back. If you've ever been blindsided by someone you trusted the most, this story might hit close to home. Let's begin. My name is Daniel Moore. And when my wife tried to leave me right after I lost my mother and inherited her fortune, she thought she was making the smartest move of her life. She thought she'd walk away with half of everything, maybe even more. But she didn't realize one thing. My mother saw her coming long before I did. Let me take you back. Chapter 1. Love and Warnings. I met Alina Brooks 9 years ago. We were both in our mid-20s, figuring out life, chasing dreams, and clinging to the idea that love could fix anything. And when I met Alina, it felt like something clicked. We connected instantly. Our conversations flowed, the chemistry was natural, and for a while it felt like I had found someone who would be in my corner through thick and thin. But not everyone shared that optimism. When I introduced Alina to my mother, Patricia, I noticed something subtle, a distance in her eyes, a tension behind her smile. She wasn't cold or rude. In fact, she was as warm as always. But after Alina left that night, my mom sat me down and said something that would echo for years. I know you love her, Daniel. But love isn't always enough. Time will tell you who she really is. I brushed it off. I told myself she was just being protective. I didn't realize she was trying to protect me from something real. Chapter 2. The Fall. Alina and I didn't rush into marriage. We dated for several years before tying the knot. And in the beginning, married life felt fine. We argued like any couple, but nothing we couldn't handle. I was working a stable job in corporate management, but after a few years, the desire to create something of my own started to gnaw at me. 2 years into our marriage, I left my job and launched a marketing agency. I had a cushion saved, I was prepared. At least I thought I was. Things were steady at first, until one disastrous mistake from an employee lost us our 2 biggest clients. The fallout was immediate. Over half our revenue evaporated overnight. I spent weeks trying to recover, pitching, emailing, cold calling. Nothing worked. The agency limped along, slowly bleeding out. And that's when things at home started to crumble. Alina changed. Where there had once been concern, there was now contempt. She didn't support me, she criticized every choice I made. When she did contribute money from her own job, it came with strings, lectures, and resentment. She never let me forget that I had walked away from a real job to chase what she now called a fantasy. The warmth between us faded. We stopped being partners and became cold strangers under the same roof. Chapter 3. The Visit That Changed Everything. Eventually, I couldn't hide my desperation anymore. I went to the one person who had always been in my corner, my mother. I explained everything. The business collapse, the debt, the fear of losing everything. She didn't scold me. She didn't say, "I told you so." She simply listened, then handed me a folder from her drawer. "This should be enough to help you rebuild. Just promise me you won't lose yourself in the process." Her help bought me time, enough to restructure, bring in consultants, and recover some momentum. The agency didn't return to its peak, but it stabilized. Could breathe again. But even with the pressure off, Alina and I remained distant. The financial burden had just exposed the deeper truth. We had drifted too far apart. Chapter 4. The Beginning of the End. Just as I was finding my footing again, I got a phone call that changed everything. My mother asked me to come over. Her voice was steady, but I could hear something was wrong. That's when she told me, ovarian cancer. Terminal. She had known for a year, quietly fighting it, hoping for more time. But there wasn't any left. The doctors said months at best. That moment shattered me. I spent every free minute by her side. And even though Alina said all the right things at first, her support dwindled quickly. She visited only when it was convenient. She said hospitals were too depressing. And honestly, I stopped expecting her to show up. 2 months later, my mother passed. I honored her final wish. A quiet burial, no fanfare. I handled everything myself. And I barely had time to grieve when the next betrayal hit me. Chapter 5. The Divorce Gambit. A week after I buried my mother, I received a sealed envelope at work. Divorce papers. No warning. No discussion. Just a petition citing irreconcilable differences. When I confronted Alina, her response was cold and calculated. Let's not make this messy. We've grown apart. It's time. I stood there stunned. This woman who had once held my hand through storms now wanted to cut ties, right after learning about my inheritance. What she didn't know, and what changed everything, was what my mother had done behind the scenes. Chapter 6. My mother's final gift. When I met with the estate lawyer, he explained that my mother had created a trust, a legal vault that held every dime of her estate, and she had placed conditions on it. The most important clause. If Daniel is undergoing a divorce within 3 years of my death, the trust remains locked, and his spouse forfeits any claim to it, now or ever. Alina was not listed anywhere in the documents. Not as a co-beneficiary. Not as a fallback. Nothing. My mother had seen something I hadn't, and made sure I wouldn't be left exposed. During the next mediation session, when Alina's lawyer demanded 50% of the inheritance, we presented the trust documentation. The room went silent. Alina's lawyer flipped through the pages, grew pale, and finally leaned back and whispered, "We should reconsider." She had gambled. She lost. Chapter 7. The Aftermath. Without access to the inheritance, Alina's cut was limited to what little was left of our joint marital assets, and much of that went to pay her legal fees. She was furious. She accused me of conspiring with my mother to trap her. She called me heartless. But I looked her in the eye and said, "You thought you could cash in on my grief. My mother saw what I couldn't. She protected me from you." That was our last real conversation. The divorce finalized a year later. Epilogue. When the dust settled. Months after it ended, Alina messaged me. She said her finances were crumbling and she didn't know who else to turn to. She was drowning and needed help. And for a brief moment, that old instinct to protect kicked in. But I didn't act on it. "I'm sorry you're struggling, Alina. But I can't help you. I truly wish you well." That was the last time we spoke. Final thoughts. Losing my mother and my marriage in the same season changed me. It cracked something deep inside, but it also opened my eyes. When people show you who they are during your darkest moments, believe them. And if you're lucky, you'll have someone in your life, like my mother, who protects you even after they're gone. Thanks for listening.